Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Big pleasure to be here with you and to talk about such an exciting subject as green hydrogen, and of course how it also influences the sustainable industrial pathways of tomorrow. Before going into the subject, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Gunther Beger, who is the Managing Director. Gunther, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Petra, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, also delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Also from my side, very warm welcome to all of you to our Multilateral Industrial Policy Forum, and in particular to this session on industrial policy for green hydrogen. I think you had very exciting and innovative session, but now I think the next one will be another highlight because we want to speak about green hydrogen and all these possibilities of this of this issue. I would like to extend my thanks to the distinguished panel for volunteering their time and to make exchange on this promising topic possible. I very much welcome partnership between your institutions and UNIDO. Ladies and gentlemen, green hydrogen, also known as renewable hydrogen, is being promoted as the fuel of the future and as key to decarbonization and the hard-to-abate industries. At UNIDO, we believe that the role of green hydrogen in developing countries does not stop there. It can be a real game changer for their net zero industrialization. The opportunity presented by green hydrogen for developing countries with abundant renewable power potential is immense. Many of them can be green hydrogen producers due to their vast renewable energy potentials. But the biggest opportunities are the new industrial development pathways which green hydrogen can open up for them. This will be a chance for net zero industrialization, skills upgrading, and green employment, all leading to an uplifted economy. We need to seize this opportunity and consider green hydrogen as one of the pillars of the industrialization strategies of developing countries with high renewable energy potential. We need to draw up the policies, legal frameworks, and international standards that are necessary to reap those opportunities. We also need to unlock the innovation and the finance to make it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, in response, UNIDO launched its global program for hydrogen in industry in July 2021. With it, we accelerate the global production and application of green hydrogen. This global program, and I can say Petra is the mother of this program. This program is a flagship program and strategy priority for UNIDO. And it echoes UNIDO's motto, progress by innovation, and UNIDO's vision for a just green transition, one which puts social and environmental aspects in focus. Through this program, ladies and gentlemen, UNIDO aims to influence and guide the development of market policies, standards, skills, financing instruments, and innovation. It is a platform for exchange and coordination between key stakeholders that play an essential role in the development of the hydrogen economy. We also promote tangible projects to accelerate the local uptake of green hydrogen in industries of developing countries and transition economies, especially through our green hydrogen industrial cluster approach. I think we will learn more about this later. To do so, we partner with stakeholders around the globe, and once more, thank you very much for our fantastic panelists, including public and private sectors, financial organizations, and academia. Dear colleagues, it just green hydrogen transition needs all of us to work together, to share our knowledge and resources. I look forward to this dialogue that will help us move forward for a more sustainable and green future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bigger, for this kind introduction. Before we move on, I just would like to underline that, of course, there is also blue hydrogen. There are also different colors of hydrogen. In our program, we are opening the floor up and we're debating all colors of hydrogen, but this session is focused on green hydrogen. And in our technical cooperation, we focus on renewable or green hydrogen projects because it supports countries that have a big potential for renewable energy. And these are the countries that are mainly in the global south, and this opens up really a great opportunity for a new industrial development and an industrial pathway that could be triggered by this new, as many call them, future energy, green hydrogen. So let me pass on the floor to Smita Focus. She is in my team to outline and to give the introduction presentation. I hope that everything will work with the connection. Smita, do you hear us?
Yes, yes. I can hear you. Can you?
Great, yeah.
And I hope you can see my screen as well.
We can see everything.
Great, perfect.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So we're all set up. I just will like to give you a short presentation on how green hydrogen connects to the industrialization of countries, especially for net zero industrialization. So green hydrogen value chain. So unlike fossil fuels, green hydrogen is an energy carrier which is manufactured. Yeah. So a green hydrogen value chain is therefore very complex and involves many stages and actors. Green hydrogen is produced by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen in the electrolyzers. For that, it requires electricity that is generated from renewable energy sources, such as wind, hydro, solar. And that must then be transmitted to the through the grid to the location where the hydrogen is then being produced. It also needs water, which often will need to be desalinated from sea water. And then once produced, the hydrogen needs to be stored or transported to the point of use. The hydrogen can then be transformed into methanol or ammonia for export, or the ammonia can be used for manufacturing green fertilizers. The green hydrogen can then also be used as feedstock or energy source for the decarbonization of other hard to abate sectors, industries, including steel and cement. It can be used to produce e-fuels or as a fuel in itself in fuel cells to decarbonize the transport sector, especially aviation, shipping, and long-haul trucking. So here we have a different areas of a value chain. So due to its versatility as a potential energy carrier, green hydrogen is going to be a game changer, one which will enable a transition to a net zero. As we saw it, in order to produce the green hydrogen, we need a lot of renewable electricity. Good news for the Global South is that the Global South is where the high renewable energy potential are, and this means that these countries are therefore extremely uniquely positioned to become key producers of hydrogen. With that comes the benefits of new paths to industrialization, such as investing in renewable power projects and electrolyzers, building of new value chains and exports, attracting energy-intensive downstream industries, stimulating innovation, and growing the markets for hydrogen-based technologies. A domestic hydrogen industry therefore has the potential to create new jobs, skilled jobs. It has the potential to mobilize investment and generate economic wealth. It can also reduce energy imports and help to achieve energy security. It can therefore increase a country's resilience through a diversified economy. Green hydrogen industry is, however, still in its infancy, and there are several challenges hindering its full potential, such as a lack of conducive policies and regulations to boost investor confidence, a lack of internationally harmonized technical standards to boost global trade, financial support to boost hydrogen project development is also missing. Countries are lacking skills to support the domestic hydrogen industry. A lack of accessible and affordable innovation is also an issue, as is the coordination among key stakeholders, whether it's locally or internationally. UNIDO, as you've heard, launched its global program for hydrogen in 2021 to help developing countries overcome these identified barriers and to support a just transition of hydrogen, which does not neglect the social and environmental aspect. I hope this will set the scene, been able to set the scene for you, and over to our distinguished panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Smita. I think everybody knows. Please go ahead. I think you all see now the complexity, but also the opportunity for this new fuel of the future, as many call it. I have now the pleasure to invite Mr. Emanuele Bianco. He is a program officer at ARENA, International Renewable Energy Agency. And UNIDO has, in our program, we have a partnership component and a technical cooperation component. And in the partnership component, we aim to reach out to many partners, key knowledge partners or sister organizations to team up and to develop new tools and knowledge products. And especially with ARENA, we have the pleasure for this year to work on a policy toolkit for green hydrogen. And with this, Emanuele, let me start by addressing my questions to you. Welcome. So,
thank you.
As I mentioned already, I mean, you have published so many knowledge products here. So how do you see the market for green hydrogen and also the linkage of green hydrogen to industrial policies? Could you elaborate a little bit on this?
Of course. I must say that all the studies, everything that has been done so far, also the work of in the ministers in both developed and developing countries, Global South and Global North, has been started by experts in the energy sector, because they are usually the first called for the decarbonization challenge. However, it became clearer and clearer that the hydrogen will only grow if there will be industrial policies in place. Because we are talking about changing how we are the processes of the so-called hard-to-abate sectors. And this cannot happen by just decreasing the cost of hydrogen or making hydrogen available across the world and kickstarting an international market of hydrogen. That will mean it will need in particular to change the processes and to impose a change to industries in a time frame that is very, very strict. For both steel makers and ammonia producers, there is only one cycle of refurbishment before 2050. So if they have to become climate neutral by the deadline given us by the IPCC, then there is a need to impose a change or to make the change the only option available. But this approach, this way of policy making, it's a return of a kind of policies, industrial policies that were a bit frowned upon from the 90s and that only returned in certain form after the global crisis of 2008. Now, we are living in a world of multiple crises, and we are seeing that control and support and any form of policies to make sure that the manufacturing industry in your region exist and can operate whatever the crisis is happening are very, very important. So green hydrogen has emerged a way to maintain industry within jurisdictions and at the same time maintaining them let them address the climate challenges. We can also see how much protectionist measures are being returning, in particular measures to avoid the carbon leakage. And so measures like the carbon border adjustment mechanism are just measures to make sure that this green hydrogen is being used by the current developed countries that have the current manufacturing industry, or that green hydrogen is used by also in developing world by industrialized countries, in particular in the East Asia. But overall, we can also see there measures to avoid what we can call the green leakage, so the relocation of industries in areas that have good variable renewable energy resources and the potential to produce hydrogen. And yeah, in general sense, the developed countries want to maintain their local manufacturing industry, and they would only be willing to trade hydrogen or ammonia, and they are not so much for now in the planning willing to trade products that can be produced locally. And we can see it by the very large numbers of hydrogen imports that have been presented by various countries compared to the other ideas, for example, of local development for the global south. So this is a call for everyone to start thinking about how to react in a world that could present an uneven picture with global north countries protecting the industry. Should also global south countries starting doing something like this? Should be, probably it's the return of short supply chains. And this, of course, involves also hydrogen because long supply chain of hydrogen are quite difficult to achieve. We still are not able to do so. We have some experience, but not enough to make that happen at scale. And instead, supply chains of finished products will be much, much easier to develop. I hope I answered your question. Sorry if I went a bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emanuele. It's always difficult if you know so much about a subject and then you have to share it in 5 minutes. It's always a challenge. So thank you for summarizing this. What we learned from you is really to drive forward the local application of green hydrogen in industries of the global south. And this is the focus of our program. We understand that there is a need for export because countries need to fund and finance the development of their green hydrogen economy, and they need the dollars for this or whatever, euros. But nevertheless, it is essential to also consider the local application. And and a very good example for this is Morocco, and I'm very happy to have you, Samir Rashidi, here. He is the general manager of Arisen, which is a hub for green hydrogen. Morocco has been one of the flagship countries, already publishing its national green hydrogen strategy in 21, led by the Ministry of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development. It's a strategy that spans over 30 years, 2020 to 2050, and very much linked to industrial development. Could you outline a little bit, could you tell us a bit about the strategy, and especially about this link to industrial development? Samir, floor is yours.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you so much, Petra, and thank you so much for UNIDO for the kind invitation. I'm really honored to be among you today. Well, Morocco, as you may know, we have started a bit early if you compare a little bit the region, and we have been also blessed to think somehow in advance in this about this ecosystem. In fact, we see really this hydrogen, let's say, revolution as a second opportunity for Morocco to get industrialized. So this is also my message to convey today to all partners, all partners that are here today, is really for us a way to industrialize. And the way we build somehow the roadmap is really to focus on the value chain. Of course, Morocco is not an oil and gas country, so we are lacking lots of infrastructure. But this is also our, let's say, challenge, is really to keep up quickly with the hydrogen economy, but to also quickly get equipped in terms of infrastructure. Because if, for example, we have nice elements to produce competitive green molecules like availability of land, availability of desalinated water, availability of wind and solar, this infrastructure and also downstream industrial tissue, if I may say, or clusters, are a little bit lacking. So this is somehow the focus of one of the focuses, let's say, of the value chain, and then that has been, let's say, tackled by the roadmap. And also the roadmap also tackled many aspects of the ecosystem. We also insisted on having a proper governance for from the public point of view, institutional point of view, but also the need and the obligation of having the private sector as a lead for the industrial part. And third level is also to keep up with R&D, innovation, and capacity building to develop local, let's say, know-how and local expertise to lower the cost together for this human capital who will be also contributing to the gigawatt scale plants. There has been also a focus on the market, let's say, because of course, there is a big opportunity for Morocco in terms of domestic industry for the fertilizer business, and we can speak about this later on. But also, let's say, the main opportunity for Morocco, like a sort of a Pareto, 70% or 80% of the opportunity is, as you mentioned, Petra, in the introduction, is the export. So this is also huge, and in this regards, we are having also an experience with the aircraft industry and the automotive industry, where we could, together with European partners, co-localize a competitive aircraft and automotive industry. And this is also one of the key points I would like also to point out here today among you, the audience, is also to look beyond the commodity. Of course, we have an opportunity for green molecules. This is key. It's a market, turnover, EBITDA, etc. But what is key also for Europe, but also for the exporting countries, is to think how we could also co-localize and maximize the impact of co-localizing the industrial value chain. And when we speak about the industrial value chain, it's not only about electrolyzers, but it's also about PV panels, wind blades, and also the rest of the equipment, pipelines, etc., and a grid infrastructure, which is really huge and can bring lots of value both in Europe and in countries like Morocco. Last thing also I would like to mention, and please bear also my the analogy I will be putting. It's not about, and we are really very clear about this. It's not about making Morocco the future Russia for hydrogen for Europe. The market is just huge, and it will be there will be a place for everyone, literally, without exaggerating. But Morocco can be one of the quick wins, let's say, case studies or case where we could demonstrate and achieve a very competitive green molecules on the short term. That was my introduction, Petra. I don't want to be long. Thank you so much, and let's keep discussing during the panel.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. So the ingredients for green hydrogen is land, water, and sun. Much of this is in the global south. What I take also away from you is from your presentation, there's no competition here. We need energy. We need to decarbonize. We have to trigger jobs. We need a low carbon industrial development. So there's no competition here. I would like to give the floor now to Ms. Veronica Robert. She is Undersecretary of Strategy for Development in the Presidency of Argentina. Nice to have you here. Argentina has a lot of experience in hydrogen and has recently launched its national strategy for low emission hydrogen. Could you elaborate a little bit on the main components there and how you also see this linking to the industrialization plan of your country? Because what we learned today is a robust hydrogen strategy needs to be combined or should be combined with a robust industrial development strategy. Floor is yours, Veronica.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for allowing me to introduce some issues of Argentinian strategy on hydrogen and share this panel with these very important people in the world of hydrogen. I would like to say that Argentina has this long history on hydrogen. We started producing hydrogen at low scale in 2009 in a pilot plant, and since then there are several research groups mostly that are very concerned on hydrogen as an alternative to fossil fuels and a way to decarbonize several industries. Of course, in that moment, the hydrogen wasn't seen in the way that is seen now. So these first steps were done by ourselves in just looking at the opportunities around hydrogen, but before the hydrogen became a major sector, a major driver for decarbonization and energy transition. Right now, in fact, for the last year, we have been working on a strategy on hydrogen, and we hope to launch this strategy by June or August. We are working in a private-public dialogue process, building this strategy, and of course we are focused this strategy trying to combine our previous experience, but also in the new global context of decarbonization and climate change measure for mitigation and adaptation. In this regard, our strategy, of course, take advantage of the natural resources that Argentina has for renewable energies, but also for other kinds of low emission hydrogen, like blue hydrogen that comes from gas reforming with carbon capture, and these natural resources that are very, very huge, very important in our country, since we have a very high quality of winds in Patagonia, and also very huge extensions of land where farms, where wind farms can be built. and also the solar resource is also quite good, and the gas resource is also quite good. These natural resources we are seen in our strategy as standpoint, but not the end by itself, because Argentina also has this very important tradition in industry. We have a very important industrialization process that began in the mid-20th century, and we have to take advantage also of these capabilities in industrialization, in the labor training, and in this regard, we think that what we can offer to the world, to the decarbonization of the world in the field of hydrogen, is the combination of the two, the natural resources and the industrial capabilities. In this regard, as well as in the Morocco strategy, we are also very concerned on the whole value chain, of hydrogen. We see that in blades and wind turbines, and especially in towers, where we already have industrial capacities, these capacities could be expanded. And also we see in electrolyzers a very fertile field for new investments, since the world does not have at this moment the whole capacity built in electrolyzers that would be needed to the decarbonization at the world level. So in this regard, we are very concerned that these new sectors do not become in an export enclave for Argentina, and we are trying to build the policy framework that allow us to embed it very close, very strong with the local capacities, local capabilities in industrialization, in science and technology, and in innovation. So this is the broad framework that we are working in this moment in Argentina. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and also for highlighting the need for expanding the capacities. According to our know-how, at the moment, the capacity of delivering sizable electrolyzers is quite limited, and many of the big providers can only accept 1 out of 10 contracts because they are still not there. So there is a huge opportunity also for countries in the global south to pick up and to develop your hydrogen value chain. So thank you for pointing this out, Veronica. I would now like to come to Mr. John Matthew. He is Professor Emeritus from Macquarie Business School and Macquarie University. Could you maybe talk a bit about the role of innovation policy to enable local development of related technologies and also boost industrialization? And how can we create this socio-economic value of hydrogen in developing countries? The floor is yours. John?
Thank you very much, Petra. Could you just confirm that you can all hear me?
We can hear you well. Maybe you could turn up a little bit your micro, but we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So thank you to UNIDO, and congratulations to UNIDO for staging this important forum where we can talk about the future for energy and the role that energy plays in the industrialization process. This is a very well-named forum. It's green hydrogen. It's very important to recognize that in industrialization processes, the role that energy plays, it's either produced from the earth, and it's the great lottery whether you have oil or whether you don't have oil, whether you have coal or not, versus the possibility of manufacturing your own energy and making energy part of the industrialization process. And it's green hydrogen that that provides that kind of benefit. You can manufacture it because you can use electrolyzers that produce the hydrogen from water, and then the hydrogen is utilized in different industrial processes. You can do green steel, you can do green cement, you can do green ammonia, as we've just learned that they're doing in Morocco. And all of these are possible because the green hydrogen is a product of manufacturing, and it contributes to the development of manufacturing industry in the country. So when we look at green hydrogen rather than just hydrogen overall, then we see that it becomes a real substitute, the potential substitute for the entire fossil fuel economy. So in my most recent book, The Solar Hydrogen Economy, I've looked at the scale of the fossil fuel economy, which has grown to enormous scale in the past 100 or 150 years. It's if you add it all up, the coal, the oil, and the gas, then it comes to about 12 billion tons of oil equivalent each year, 12 gigatons of oil equivalent. And that is a colossal amount. If you look at the energy that delivers, it's about 500 exajoules, 500 exajoules. An exajoule is a huge quantity of energy. For example, a volcanic explosion operates at around a level of 1 exajoule. So the fossil fuel economy is about 500 times that level. Hydrogen, if it's a green hydrogen option, offers the opportunity to completely substitute for all those fossil fuels. And with that, all the energy insecurity that goes with fossil fuels, the environmental pollution through the dust and particle pollution created. So these are the benefits that are created by a shift towards green hydrogen. So in my recent book, I've argued that green hydrogen is the next important step in the transition to a green and sustainable economy. And it's the fundamental reason for that is that it is based on manufacturing and that it promotes manufacturing in the country that is industrializing. The exports are created through the hydrogen itself, either exported as power in the grid or converted into hydrogen and exported as the hydrogen itself or as a derivative like green ammonia, which again they're doing in Morocco to promote green fertilizers. So I'm happy to elaborate on any of those points, but that's, I think, enough for an introductory set.
Thank you very much, John. It seems also that we need a lot of innovation to drive this forward to really accelerate a green hydrogen, a renewable hydrogen economy. And thanks for also flagging in your book. I would now, we can't do this energy transition without industry. So one of our partners is also Hydrogen Europe, and I'm very glad to see Jorgo here, who is the CEO of Hydrogen Europe. So Jorgo, how do you see this transition to renewable hydrogen, and will it happen without substantial involvement of the private sector? I don't think so. What is your take on this?
Well, first of all, Petra, many, many thanks for the invitation and giving me the possibility to say a few words about the role of industry. My association called Hydrogen Europe has now nearly 500 members from big companies like Airbus to quite small companies, SMEs, but covering the whole hydrogen sector. So it's not just the hydrogen production, mainly green hydrogen production, but not only, via electrolyzers. So all the electrolyzer companies are members of Hydrogen Europe, but also the dissemination, so the transport of hydrogen via pipelines, via carriers, via derivatives, and then the use of hydrogen in four different sectors. One is mobility, one is the energy sector, one is industry, where hydrogen is used as a feedstock. We heard from Samir about fertilizers. And the last one is heating in houses. So basically, all over the last 5-6 years, together with the European Commission and together with the member states, we created a network of a strong and close cooperation between the policymakers and the private industry in our association, but also under the umbrella of the so-called European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, with much more than 1,000 members. In this alliance, more than 750 projects have been detected, have been also brought together, and that shows that we need each other. We cannot do all this, the big switch, and John just mentioned, it's the next big step, but we cannot do this change of course without the support, of course, of policymakers, without clear regulation, but then with a good cooperation, pre-competitive cooperation between industry players, industrial players, big and small level. So basically, the whole hydrogen story has not been invented in Europe, but the Europeans have brought forward a big regulatory approach and framework, which is currently finalized. So we see also in Korea, Japan, also, of course, China, and in the global south, in many, many, many places, this development now. But initially, the bigger approach was, done in Europe, typically European, very complex, sometimes very hard to understand. And I would like to highlight where we are at the moment and how industry and policymakers in Europe can basically work it out and open a big market for the global south as a prime partner. So basically, with the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, the EU, the European Union, has come up with a program called Repower EU. So that was born out of the urgency to replace Russian oil and gas in the European households, in the European industry. And the figure of 2 times 10 million tons was put into that plan. So until 2030, we want to have a domestic production of 10 million tons of green hydrogen in Europe. And we want to import from Argentina, from Morocco, from many parts of the world. We want to import 10 million tons of hydrogen equally. And that, of course, will spur, and I think we will discuss that in the second round, that will spur also investments in many, many countries of the global south. However, in order to make sure that there is an offtake, we want to see an obligatory target, also obligatory for the industry, for ourselves, of off-taking. And we are discussing today, and in the next weeks, it will be finalized until end of May, the so-called Renewable Energy Directive. A directive has the character to be implemented directly into, a directive has the character to give a framework for member states to do certain things, but some of them are obligatory. One of them is a target that 40% of all the hydrogen used today in chemical industry, in petrochemical industry, in the fertilizer industry, needs to be replaced from gray to green. That's a volume of approximately 4 to 5 million tons. So that's half of the 10 million tons we need to produce. The other target is that out of all fuels used in Europe until 2030, some 5% need to be hydrogen-based. That's another 5 million tons. So you see, with these targets, we oblige ourselves to become, well, producers, but also net demanders of hydrogen produced all over the globe. And this is the way to go. We are finalizing this until the summer, and second half of the year, we know clearly which are the volumes that we need from all over the globe. And I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Jorgo, and for outlining that this, it seems that the technologies are there, but what we need is clear indications from policymakers and clear targets, as you were phrasing it. There was also a long debate ongoing in the EU. what is the definition of renewable hydrogen? We have now a first approach to this. Industry knows what we're talking about, so this is already a step forward, but also then the quotas, replacing gray hydrogen by green hydrogen. So quite a massive work that has been done by the EU. And if I may come back now to Argentina, and or maybe Arina would like to respond to this. If you see that this opportunity that green hydrogen brings, be it for increasing renewable energy, increasing jobs and wealth, and diversifying the economy, what are the policies that are needed to ensure that we are not missing this opportunity? Maybe Veronica, you would like to come in first to say, did you foresee this in your strategy? How can we really make sure that sufficient attention is given to this?
I think this is very important. I think this is a very important question. I think one of the main obstacles that we have to cope is the training of our workers. I think there is we will need a massive training programs to reconversion of the workers that today are oriented to very different sectors. I think hydrogen, as well others new sectors that will emerge with energy transition, will create enormous opportunities, but also there will be needed a lot of policy that should be implemented to take advantages of those opportunities. I think training is one of them. Other kind of opportunities, other kind of policies, of course, should be focused on the investment attraction, but also on innovation and technology transfers from the global north to the global south. In countries in global south, there are enormous capacities in science and technology, but they should have access to the new knowledge in these new sectors. And I think this is a very important issue for our countries to develop and cope, having the knowledge needed to develop these new sectors in both levels, in the level of innovation and industry, and in the level of workers. And I would like to add also the opportunities that we see here in Argentina right now to the decarbonization of the current gray hydrogen production. In Argentina, we have 400,000 tons of hydrogen production per year, and this represents the 9% of the hydrogen production in Latin America. And we see in this an opportunity to change this production of gray hydrogen to blue hydrogen or green hydrogen. We see in the local markets a big driver for the development, for the takeoff of this new energy, of this new sector. So I think the opportunities should be taken by access to knowledge, by combining local capacities to global new technologies, and also to foster local demand for hydrogen in those sectors where it is useful and cheaper enough. So I think these are some of the issues that we are right now taking into account.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and also for pointing out the need for capacity building. I mean, we will need huge. We will need to train many technicians to work on the global hydrogen market. If I could just add on to this, Emanuele, if we see now the policies, we talked about capacity building, but what do you see, what would drive more investments in green hydrogen? I mean, nowadays we have 92 million tons produced globally on hydrogen. Out of this, less than 5% is green. So how can we drive these investments?
I would like to start, not to correct you, but this 5% green comes from an understanding only about that if you take the current electrolytic hydrogen and you multiply it by the share of renewable energy, the power system, then we have this amount of green hydrogen. But this definition of renewable energy or green hydrogen, for example, will not meet any definition of green, low carbon, clean hydrogen currently used by policymakers. The current green hydrogen production is actually close to zero. And we're talking about, in fact, a inexistent thing, almost a platonic object that needs to achieve a scale that would be unforeseen in industrial practice. Now, to attract investments. Now, what I truly believe is that we are going to have what we are planning to have. Nowadays, what we are seeing, at least in the first steps, is that countries are putting themselves in the hydrogen future following very predetermined roles. Industrialized countries in the global north, as I mentioned, they want to use hydrogen to make sure that they can keep industry in their jurisdiction and while decarbonizing their industrial sectors. Countries in the developing world are instead framing hydrogen in their hydrogen strategies as an export opportunity. And in doing so, they are attracting investments that are export oriented. However, investors and also analysts will notice one thing, that the market of hydrogen as it stands today, given this strategy making, the strategies and the MOUs signed, it's an oligopsony market, meaning that it's the opposite of the fossil fuel market. We are going to have a few buyers and many, many potential sellers because, as Professor Matthews said, you can produce green hydrogen almost everywhere in the world if you have enough land, renewable energy capacity, and water. But if it's an oligopsonic market, there is the risks of oligopsonic markets, meaning, for example, that the potential buyers will use the hydrogen trading as a potential as a way to maintain geopolitical collaborations, which can be a very good thing to maintain good relationship between states, between nations, but could also mean that some countries will not have the same treatment of other countries because they are not in the same stances with the potential buyers. If instead policymaking is reshaped, reframed toward the attracting low industries, toward attracting manufacturers with the jurisdiction of where hydrogen can be produced at low cost, then investors would see that as the signal. And it would not be sci-fi. It's 200 years now that industries has been relocated where renewable energy, where energy is cheaper. It started with the Industrial Revolution in the UK and it continued. And we have continuous examples if we look closely, like the aluminium production when it was relocated from Japan and moved toward where hydropower was available. And we can imagine, we can foresee a world where hydrogen is produced in areas with good renewable energy resources for industries that are local, so not to have to transport through thousands of kilometers this product and produce locally fertilizers and stills for local markets, for Latin American markets, for African markets, for Asian markets. And that will be actually supported by the protectionist measures that I mentioned before from the global north countries. However, what is really, really needed will be to rethink the energy transition pathways for the developing countries and understand that the energy transition would require a holistic vision that will not only involve the people working in the energy sector, but also the people working in the industrial sector, the people working in the agricultural sector, and so on and so forth. So to create the environment, the enabling environment where all the governance, all the people in these various sectors understand and can plan the future together. And therefore, the policies, if I have to identify the policies for developing countries to attract a substantial amount of green hydrogen investment, will be to create the enabling environment for local industries. This is beyond this, therefore, and the energy sector. It goes in a different direction, and actually UNIDO could help in identifying these policies with us, and that's why we are doing the policy toolkit, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in and for giving a bit promotion to our joint work. As we just have heard, so this local application of green hydrogen is really an important pillar of the entire hydrogen economy, of a sustainable hydrogen economy. We know that in Morocco, you're experimenting, or you're working, not experimenting, you're working on green hydrogen oasis. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on this and how this is? How this could also be transferred to other countries. And thanks also for the work with us on our green hydrogen industrial cluster model. Thanks, Samir.
Thank you so much, Petra. Indeed, we have this concept we're trying to brand for Morocco and also for the region. Europe is a lot talking about hydrogen valleys. Given the geography of the region, we are trying to brand the hydrogen oasis. And the idea behind this is really, Petra and all the audience, is to also to cope with the structure of what could be at least the short-term project. We think, and also to take this opportunity to answer one of the questions in the Q&A, that all the first projects will be a little bit integrated and mainly. In my opinion, now a certainty is starting to appear, is that no project will, at least for the first project, no project will stop at the hydrogen level. So now everyone is trying at least, and I say at least, to stop at the ammonia level, because of the availability of nitrogen in the air, and also the story that we know about Haber-Bosch. So it's already a commodity and could be traded very well in really the short term. And since it makes a business case, we have already a first hydrogen oasis that has been announced by the OCP Group, our big fertilizer company, targeting to build 2 gigawatt electrolysis capacity, 4 gigawatt renewables, and 1 million tons of green ammonia by 2027. And this was presented to His Highness the King last December. And also we had an announcement from a European company called John Cockerill from Belgium to build a GV for a factory, gigafactory for electrolyzers, with a private partner, which was not disclosed at the moment. And I verified it's not OCP. So it's another, let's say, stream of projects. So and probably it will be in the region of Dakhla, to the south of the hydrogen, let's say, oasis of OCP. And as I told you now, people or developers that are also that we meet when they visit Morocco to see somehow the feasibility of their investment, they are targeting, as I told you, integrated projects from, let's say, the green electron to the green molecule, and see also the hub, the exporting hub, since also the infrastructure is somehow for them, for those gigawatt projects, around 10 to 20% of the whole capex. So there are also some projects would like also to integrate their own harbors to express also the particularity of these huge projects. And with those developers, we are having somehow 10 to 15 of them. They are thinking about, of course, as I told you, ammonia as a vector, since for the short term, but there are some of them that are also targeting steel, aluminum, as an intermediate project to some niche markets also for Morocco, because we have, as I told you, some automotive and aircraft industry that could use the green steel, but especially also to make also competitive green steel, high-end steel in Europe as well. So it's a bit technical, but we are speaking about HBI, which are intermediate steel components that could be, for example, a synergy between Mauritania, Morocco, and Europe in this regards. So those are the cases of what we call hydrogen oasis. We have also some niches in Tangiers for the which is one of the top 20 harbors in the world that could also be a use case for bunkering application, methanol for maritime, or ammonia for maritime. This is also a huge issue in Morocco to develop this industry that we don't have, since we are not an oil and gas. We don't have methanol, petrochemical industry. We have also a crisis in a refinery since 2015. So green refinery could be also an activity in the region of Casablanca, which is one of our, let's say, hydrogen oasis as well. So we are really seeing Morocco as a series of hydrogen oasis that could be in the same way that Europe is thinking exporting hubs, potential exporting hubs, with a backbone, to use also a European term, with a backbone of pipeline that could develop in the middle and low term, then to deliver green hydrogen at the form of gas to Europe through Spain, for example. And we have a nice project now that has been signed recently between Portugal, Spain, France, and Italy, I think, or Germany, to have a Mediterranean underwater pipeline for hydrogen, which is really good news to also let's say to deblock, energetically speaking, the Iberian peninsula, which is also a bottleneck for the exports of electricity and also gas from Morocco. And what I would like also to add on, and as a specificity of Morocco, since it's not a big industrial country, we will probably need another flow, another backbone of CO2 that could come also from Europe. And in order also, because we are also thinking of power to liquid, of methanol, but also of green fuels, synthetic kerosene, synthetic diesel, which could be also a nice synergy and complementarity between Europe in order to have some CO2. And we have already some projects starting to pop up in Europe, especially in Germany and Belgium, to have also a backbone of CO2 to use it internally in Europe, but also to have exports of it to countries like Morocco in order to process it and also export it afterward as a competitive green decarbonized fuels to Europe and elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Very exciting news from Morocco. John, we heard now from Samir about the oasis, but could you maybe elaborate a bit on the social and the environmental impact and the benefits that it could create, and what we have to take care of when we are creating these hubs, these oases, in regard to water use, land use?
Yes, so certainly, Petra. And we noticed in Emanuele's contribution, he gave an historical dimension to the energy story. And there's a very important historical dimension to the story of green hydrogen as well. If we go back to the 1970s, that is half a century ago, an engineer and scientist called John O'Malley Bockris was the one who formulated the vision of a green hydrogen economy. And by that he meant a way of running an economy not on fossil fuels that you dig out of the ground, but on something that can be manufactured. And you can manufacture hydrogen by taking water, running an electrolyzer through it to produce the hydrogen. You then run the hydrogen through various industrial processes, and each time it reacts with something, it creates a byproduct of water. So it's a very clean system that provides a circular flow from water through industrial processes back to water. And that was the beauty of the green hydrogen industrial system that John O'Malley Bockris formulated in the 1970s. But it never came to pass. in his own lifetime and in the years following. And why was that? Because the fossil fuel industry fought back furiously to prevent the advent of a green hydrogen system, of a green hydrogen economy. So we have all these color-coded terms, grey hydrogen, blue hydrogen, etc. But they all mean the involvement of fossil fuels in the production and use of hydrogen. Whereas the vision that John O'Malley Bocker has put forward and the vision which can guide us today is of a hydrogen economy free of any involvement of fossil fuels. And the implication of that is that the hydrogen is the product of manufacturing. So energy systems become the product of manufacturing. And then we find innovation starting to drive competition. And in the case of electrolyzers, which have been a static technology for about 100 years, almost no improvement in the efficiency of electrolysis, suddenly with the advent of green hydrogen, we now find innovations like capillary-fed electrolysis, CFE. I don't know whether you've heard of that, but it's a major innovation to make electrolysis more efficient. It actually works on the same principle as trees and plants do, to draw water up from the soil. And the same way the capillary-fed electrolysis draws water up against gravity so that it can be used in the electrolytic cell to produce the hydrogen. That's just one of many kinds of technical innovations that we can see coming into being as a result of the emphasis in hydrogen, green hydrogen production on manufacturing. So because it's manufactured focused, we have the possibility for developing countries, industrializing countries, to both use green hydrogen in their development and manufacturing and to produce green hydrogen and export it in one of various forms. It can be exported as the gas under pressure. It can be exported in the form of ammonia and other derivatives. So here we have the next big step in the energy story, the next big step in an industrial revolution. And it's an industrial revolution because it has so many pathways involving green hydrogen in different industrial processes, as we've just heard from Morocco, green steel, green cement, green glass. All of these industrial processes can be enhanced with the use of green hydrogen. They can be cleansed. The pollution associated with fossil fuels can be eliminated. And you can finally have energy security because the energy is manufactured.
Thank you very much, John. Talking about hard-to-abate sector, and there is now a famous term that appeared recently, is the hydrogen leakage. And the hydrogen leakage means that there is, of course, the potential, is it a threat, is it an opportunity that hard-to-abate sectors would move to where the energy is. How would you see this, Jorgo? And what is your take on this? Is it possible that we have the right policies and incentives where we can turn this into a win-win opportunity for developing countries, for exporting, importing? Can we have all of this together? Is it possible?
Many thanks, Petra. I think we can, but in order to get there, I would like to elaborate a little bit on one question also that is in the chat. It's about the efficiency. So the efficiency of green hydrogen production is around, we have, due to new electrolyzers, up to 80% of efficiency. The point is, if you repower this, you land, of course, at 40% of efficiency. However, we need to think in a system efficient way. And that causes the hydrogen leakage aspect that you were mentioning. So if this is a solar panel right here, that's my mobile phone, but if this would be a solar panel, it would give me here where I'm now in Brussels, 100 kilowatt hours. In Crete, where my dad comes from, it would give me already 250. In Greece, 250 kilowatt hours. If I go to Samir in Morocco, I would reach 350 up to 400 kilowatt hours with the same photovoltaic PV panel. What I want to say is that the efficiency is different. And you showed in the very beginning the global map developed also by Irina, the global map that shows it really makes sense where you are. By the way, photosynthesis, the mother of all energy production on our globe, has an efficiency of only 2.5%. So it's very, very low, but still it is the mother of our energy that we use. Now, what can we do about hydrogen leakage? So first of all, we have to acknowledge one fact. Hydrogen could easily become a tool of neocolonialism. What do I want to say? Countries like Namibia, countries like Mauritania, that so far were no energy exporting countries, could become hydrogen producers and just exporters, and this would pretty much look like a neocolonialist approach. So we as Hydrogen Europe, we look very much upon the domestic use of hydrogen. And the best way to do it is to make hydrogen part of the processing. Give you an example, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe banned last year, end of last year, around Christmas, they banned to export minerals, critical raw materials, without being processed. That's an excellent way of stopping the exploitation that had happened so far, especially with cobalt in that country, on behalf and lithium on behalf of China. Yeah? So if the first steps of processing are done in the global south, of course, that leads to a loss of parts of the value chain from industrialized countries into the global south. Very, very obviously, it becomes, if we look at steel, the steel production today that happens in Europe is based on coal, on coke coal, on coal monoxide. You reduce the iron ore, the oxygen in the iron ore by CO, coal monoxide, and you get CO2, but you have clean iron then. You can do the same with hydrogen. H2 does the job, and then you have water instead. But some people argue, why should we import the iron ore from South Africa, from India, or Australia, or from Mauritania to Europe, and at the same time import the hydrogen? Couldn't we do the first process there? And basically, this is an argument which is super valid, especially for those steel companies that are difficult to reach. If you have a company that is close to the shore, close to the coast, then this leakage will not happen. But if it's landlocked and it's difficult to get the hydrogen without a pipeline to that company, it might be better to import just the sponge, so the reduced iron sponge. And then you can do, in a well-developed partnership, the first processes in the global south and the specialization of steel as usually done in the industrialized countries. And it's all about partnerships. It's all about understanding how we can develop these partnerships between the global south and the industrialized countries. There's another very, very good example that we didn't touch upon, which is silicon. Also, silicon stemming from quartz needs to be reduced, so the oxygen needs to come out. And as silicon, as quartz is globally abundant, as hydrogen is, these are things that can be done all over the globe. Argentina will be a very, very good candidate for that. And I tell you what, we as Europeans should have an interest in not doing it all in Europe, but understanding where these processes are done in Morocco, in Egypt, in Argentina, in South Africa, to have a resilient supply chain and a resilient supply, and not to depend on one geography only. Because today, 90% of the PV photovoltaic cells that are based on silicon stem from China. That's not a good way to proceed. And this is why Europe last week developed and proposed an industry act called the Net Zero Industry Act, combined with a Critical Raw Material Act, where all these aspects will now be put into a coherent plan. and global partnerships here will play a big role in order to overcome hydrogen leakage and to have a better value and supply chain system all over the globe, where hydrogen will play a very, very important role. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you, Jorgo, for this positive feedback, and that we can really put all the different interests, or we will aim to put the different interests under one head. And also these are, I mean, if we talk about steel and cement, these are huge growing markets. So we have to supply this. And so I think there's also a lot of room for bringing in diverse players. I also understand that a sustainable hydrogen economy needs a diverse trade of be it green products or hydrogen. And maybe just to pick up one of the questions that is in the chat, I don't know who would like to address this, maybe Samir or Veronica. What are the skills, what are the experiences needed if we transform hydrogen to a green product? Who would like to take this? Could be, I mean, and we know that it's a very diverse market. We are talking about green ammonia, fertilizer, we're talking about green steel, so it's quite diverse, but Veronica, please.
Yeah, I think we are facing a very new and a new technological system that will demand a new set of capacities and a new set of an old knowledge, but that should be. I mean, this new technological system will be based on chemicals mostly, and specifically on electrochemicals. We need to foster capacities in this knowledge field, because this knowledge field will be present in several of the new sectors that will emerge with energy transitions. We will see it in batteries. We will see it in cells, batteries as well, for transforming hydrogen to electrical flow of energy, and also we will see it in electrolyzers by itself. I mean, we need to know how electrons flows and how they can be combined in different chemical molecules. So I think we have enormous challenge in face of our countries to develop this new knowledge base as long and as far as we can in universities, but and in research centers, but also in high school and secondary school as well, and technicians. We have to develop this knowledge base for cope for this new challenge. Also, I would like to add another thing that I think I saw among the questions of the audience, that other issue that we need to cope is the environmental issues of developing these new activities. And in this regard, here in Argentina, we are launching right now a strategic environmental assessment of the hydrogen strategy. I think these kind of activities are very important, not only for knowing how will be the environmental impact of these new activities, but also for involving population, for involving people in the emergence of the new sectors, and knowing what is going on for the next years in this field. And in this regard, we think that with this strategic environmental assessment, which is focused on environmental but on social environmental issues, we will allow to prepare people to the challenge that we will face in the next year for becoming producers and exporters of hydrogens and new energies.
Thank you very much, Veronica. I see, Jorgo, that you wanted to take the floor. Please go ahead.
Yes, indeed, about the skills. I mean, there are many skills on a handicraft level, but also on academic level. And what we are doing in Europe at the moment is building up a so-called hydrogen academy, which will be a network of networks. So you will have the development of the curricula for both the academic, the applied, but also the vocational training side centrally. But it will be done in networking and in linking a lot of institutions all over our continent in developing this curriculum. This is part of the industry plan that has been launched last week. And we are actively involved as Hydrogen Europe in building up this Hydrogen Academy that also, of course, will invite absolvents from the global south, from all over the world, to be educated in both parts, research, but also in academia and also vocational training. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorgo, for flagging this in, and I understand that our teams have already discussed on how to join hands there and to bring this forward. I'm looking, I think most of the questions that were put in the chat are answered. I'm looking into the room. Is there any burning questions? Are there burning questions here? Comments? We were very clear. Good. Okay. Then I see there's one more question. No more question. Okay, good. Then let me just close this session and first of all, thanking, of course, the panelists for their excellent contributions, thanking all of you for listening in, and underlining once again the need that we see in all of this for a strong partnership approach, for a diversification of all the players that are there in the trade. And as you might know, at the last COP, President Al-Sisi, with the support of the Prime Minister of Belgium, has launched the Global Renewable Hydrogen Forum. We are supporting this initiative. This is being negotiated at the moment with different countries. We are partnering here with ARENA, eventually hosting the Secretariat. These are all initiatives. This is a very important initiative to especially bring in also the voice of the South, but also bring in more players to diversify this market and to have a very vibrant market at the global level. We have also heard a lot of the challenges and opportunities that exist. It's the fuel of the future that is very much linked to industrial policies. So we are very happy to partner with a lot of knowledge partners from industry, from academia, from other UN organizations. We listen to our member states. We are welcoming all the remarks here, and we will have, let me put a little bit of advertisement here. On the 21st of April in the afternoon, we will have another member state dialogue where we will also present to you the advancements of our program and look forward to a vibrant debate there. Many thanks again. It's a pleasure to have had all of you on the panel. We look forward to continue the cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a nice break and thank you for the attention. Thank you.
Many thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Petra. Thank you very much, colleagues. We break now, and we hope to see you back. Many of you, I know we had some issues in the morning, and we'll try to sort it out. But I really thank you for your patience and interest. So we are back scheduled 2:15 here, and then we will change gears. We will move now into the direction of digitalization and gender, and that will be the end of the day. But certainly, we look forward to your presence with us in the afternoon. Thank you.